Good afternoon. I'm Nasser with DAC, and welcome to the webinar. We will be starting momentarily, so give us a minute just to let people enter and log on. We'll give them approximately a minute, and then we'll get started. Thank you for your patience. Once more, for those just joining us, welcome to the webinar. My name is Nasser with DAC. We will be starting our broadcast momentarily. We're just giving people a couple of final seconds to join, and then we'll be getting rolling. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon and welcome to the webinar. My name is Nasser, I'm with DAC, and we will be talking today about protecting your brand health with full funnel media. My panelists today, they're joining me. Those who have joined previous DAC panels or webinars will recognize my colleague in crime, Jenna Watson, who is our head of digital media. Jenna is based out of Chicago, but right now is in London, where it's still Tuesday, isn't it, Jenna? Welcome.
It's still Tuesday. Thank you.
And joining us from New York is Nikhil Lai. Nikhil is the senior analyst with Forrester. Nikhil's research focuses on the evolution of performance marketing, including retail media, search, social, TV, audio, out-of-home, and creative. He helps clients with guidance sessions, webinars, and workshops on the current and future states of performance marketing, SEO best practices, and how to master particular channels. Welcome to the broadcast, Nikhil.
Thanks for having me.
And Nikhil, maybe you can start off with just a very brief introduction into who Forrester is, please.
Sure. So Forrester is a research and advisory firm. So in particular, I spend about half my time creating research on, for example, how to improve your SEO maturity, how to synergize paid and organic search into holistic search marketing, how to overcome your fear of missing out on the retail media gold rush. And then the other half of my time is spent advising clients on how to implement the best practices that I and my colleagues write about. So it's research, advisory, consulting, events, and as Nasser mentioned, I'm covering the performance marketing space right now.
Well, thank you for joining us, Nikhil. It's our pleasure to have you here.
My pleasure to join.
So for the attendees, please, as you have questions, as they come up, drop them into the question bar in the function. There will be a recording that will be available after the session, and it'll be sent to you via email, as well as the report, which will be sent to you, and there will be a report available on the DAC website. We've scheduled an hour. We don't anticipate that this is going to take an hour. We'd like to give you some of your time back. But of course, if we take that full time based on the questions that we get in, then we're more than happy to spend that with you. So with that said, let's talk about the study. Let me click the clicky and get us moving. So a little bit about the study. It is live right now on dacgroup.com. Everyone's going to receive a copy in their inbox about an hour after the webinar. But maybe we can start off with Nikhil. Why is this an important study to do right now?
Yeah, so it's important to do right now because of the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity that we're all living through. And like the number one question that I'm getting from marketers this quarter is about how to market during a downturn and whether next year is going to be like the pandemic was, whether next year will be like the global financial crisis. There's just so much uncertainty and so much fear that's pervading the inquiries that I'm having. And so I think as an antidote to some of that fear and uncertainty, this study helps answer these burning questions about what to do in the next 12 months. So I think it's topical because of that.
What about you, Jenna? Why now?
Well, it's that exactly, right? The fear and uncertainty makes people make sometimes rash decisions, right? It makes them look at where all of their expenditures are and be like, oh, media, I can cut that. So I think, right now with people making these decisions, especially, not only are we in an economic downturn, but we're in a next year planning cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the exactly perfect time to think through, what am I going to have to do next year to meet my business objectives? So no better time than right now, for sure.
And I think there's a fair statement in there, which is you say we're in an economic downturn. Though, are we?
Are we?
It's really like from any one day to the next, the world is burning, and then it's not. In fact, things are okay. And I think that level of uncertainty is why we went to market. And what we did is we went to 260 global marketing and digital experience decision makers and asked them a series of questions across North America and Europe, and these were VP level plus individuals. And if there's one theme that kind of came through in people's responses and that we kind of went through the analysis and tried to understand what they were telling us, we believe it's about expectations. We believe that it's about expectations people make of media and of digital experience. It's of expectations that people make of themselves and each other. And it's not holding the greatest expectations to the greatest parts of their expenditures. So this being the holidays, of course, we thought of Charles Dickens. And Charles came out with this in Great Expectations. He said, "I must be taken as I have been made. The success is not mine, the failure is not mine, but the two together make me." Upper and lower funnel, go figure. So what are the expectations? Let's get into this. We know that businesses are bracing for more disruption as the economic tides are turning due to inflation and financial instability. And CMOs are being asked to do more with less to sustain this growth. In this process, marketers are scrambling to determine where to invest and divest and what to bring in-house to ensure that media continues to have a beneficial impact on their financial bottom line. However, in this environment, marketers have to think more strategically and develop effective, resilient media plans and measurement strategies that bring together all facets of the customer experience, from awareness to consideration to purchase and loyalty. Doing so not only produces better results in the short term, but in the long term as well. And to succeed in this effort, marketers need to apply a performance mindset to make sure that every dollar works as hard as it can to every aspect of their organization's media and creative. And today we're going to talk about 3 different themes that we believe collectively are driving this. So the 3 themes that we're going to be discussing: upper funnel media investments improve performance of the entire funnel. The second is that taking a performance mindset holds every dollar spent accountable. And the third is you have opportunities to unlock the benefits of full funnel media and the right mindset and channel mix. So let's talk a little bit about the first one. Let's grab that. Upper funnel media investment, improve performance of the entire funnel. So let's start with you, Nikhil. Why do marketers need to protect the upper funnel, and why does it seem so easy to cut?
Yeah, it's a good question. So marketers need to protect the upper funnel because of its incrementality. So upper funnel campaigns reach, light buyers, medium buyers, heavy buyers. They create intent, they stimulate demand, and they reach people who would not convert without exposure to advertising. Whereas there's, a lesser degree of incrementality the further you get down the funnel, to the point where retargeting campaigns, for example, tend to reach people who would have converted without exposure to advertising. So that's like, potentially wasteful dollars. And so the upper funnel dollars are really important because of the incrementality of the reach. But those dollars are easy to cut because they are, seemingly distant from making a revenue impact. It's hard to prove their yield. And so we just got some data back from CFOs, and 40% of CFOs said that marketing investments should not be protected during a downturn because they can't prove the yield that those investments actually make. And that's a problem for marketers and for financial professionals alike. And so, the upper funnel dollars are seemingly further away from the point of purchase and therefore easier to cut. It's a mistake to do so, and we'll get into that in this section.
Jenna, could you add a little bit to that?
I sure can. So Nikhil's spot on. I mean, upper funnel exists for a reason. Let's go in the Wayback Machine here, right? Before digital was as awesome and as targeted and as pinpointed as it is today, what did we have? We had TV, we had print, we had out of home. It was all upper funnel, and people grew their businesses that way. So suddenly, well, not so suddenly, I guess digital's been around for over 2 decades now, but suddenly-ish, people look at the return that we can get from digital and how laser focused and tactically targeted it can be. And it's just like all that upper funnel stuff is persona non grata, right? And so what's happened, and I think, why people are cutting it is exactly what Nikhil said. It is harder to measure, but it's not impossible. And so I think, ask a CFO, and yeah, a CFO is going to say cut it, but ask a person who understands their brand and understands their audience and who really knows what makes marketing work for their brand and for their audience, they would likely have a differing opinion to that, for sure.
So Nikhil, you talked about this idea of adding incremental value. How do you know that? How do you know that is a fact?
So the next slide, if you go to the next slide, shows some research that we did that proves the efficacy of upper funnel. And so Forrester has this concept of brand energy, which is a proxy for brand health or brand salience or awareness. And we're able to correlate brand energy to lower funnel outcomes, if you will, or brand energy to like provable yield. And so we're finding that brands with the highest levels of energy, with the greatest awareness, with the greatest salience, they have better outcomes in terms of preferences that consumers have for certain brands. Those brands create a propensity to purchase at a faster rate than other brands do. And perhaps most importantly, they persuade consumers to be willing to pay a premium for seemingly higher quality goods and services, and also convince consumers to recommend and share their experiences with given goods and services. So across the board, from awareness to purchase to loyalty, high energy brands that continuously build their salience and get healthier year after year after year, they outperform the S&P basically. And we also have some data on that, but for this in particular, we're finding a correlation between brand energy and bottom of funnel outcomes.
So let's now get into the study, and in particular, what is top of mind to marketers in terms of what they're telling us in this study?
Yeah, so the next slide shows that what's top of mind to marketers right now is really reducing waste. And so, 85% of marketers say that in the next 12 months, they're going to prioritize adjusting their strategies to prepare for economic uncertainty and for the impacts of inflation, aka prepare for a potential recession. How do you do that? You reduce unnecessary spend, you consolidate to your most impactful channels, and you bring certain outsourced technologies and services back in-house. But because of the work that DAC and Forrester are doing, marketers realize that reducing and retrenching and cutting shouldn't happen at the expense of building brand and maintaining your brand's energy and salience. And so the next slide, Nasser, shows that even though marketers are telling us that they're retrenching, they're cutting back, they're trying to reduce, and they're worried about CFOs slashing budgets. Even though that's happening, they're still prioritizing, full funnel media planning. And close to 2/3 of marketers say that it's a priority for them to plan throughout the funnel, to plan from top down and from bottom up, because of the growth that they know full funnel strategies actually catalyze. So that's sort of the paradox right now, is that marketers are like, all right, I need to cut, I need to do as much as I can with as little as I can, but at the same time, I have to keep planning for growth. I have to keep planning for awareness. So that's what's top of mind right now.
Well, you're right, it is a paradox. And I think that is reflective of the tough spot that these marketers find themselves in, right? Between the macro environment and the pressure. So let me ask you, Jenna, what are your clients feeling? Are they still trying to stay the course with full funnel media? And if so, why?
Yes, they're trying, but there are huge, huge pressures on our marketing clients, right? So they work within organizations that spend money lots of places, not just on marketing. And if the whole world is in a potential, whatever, downturn, recession, whatever this thing is, right? They're going to be just one line item in the register. And so, yes, the marketers who understand the value of this full funnel planning. So, I mean, even just, people will pay a premium if you've got the high brand energy. People and marketers who understand that are certainly trying to protect it. But I've been working in this industry for over 20 years, and the pressures on these marketers that I am seeing today are unlike anything I've seen before. And it's coming at them kind of top down. So yes, they're trying, not always fully successfully, unfortunately.
So that's interesting, because they know that this is inherently a valuable thing to do. They're telling us in the surveys. And they're responding by consolidating in certain areas, by cutting in certain areas, in particular in the upper funnel. So what are you think that in going into 2023 that they've got this figured out. So perhaps talk a little bit, maybe Nikhil, about what are the challenges that are driving this lack of understanding of the impact of the upper funnel?
Yeah, sure. So the top challenge, as the survey indicates, is deriving actionable insight from customer data. That's been a challenge, I think, for the last century of marketing, but it's perhaps more challenging today because of the signals that we're losing about who our customers are, what they intend to do, where they consume media, and we're losing signal because of the operating system restrictions, the threat of browser-based cookie deprecation. So signal loss is compounding this challenge, which has always been, a persistent and pretty acute challenge. Relatedly, the second top challenge is the difficulty of tracking performance across the customer journey. That, I think, is a reflection of how siloed channels are still, and how siloed brand and performance marketers can be from each other. And as you get into retail, how siloed shopper marketers are from digital marketers, and there's cultural disconnect and cultural conflict within organizations that's inhibiting the brands from actually unlocking those insights. And then related to that is this third challenge of not being able to respond to market volatility or market dynamics quickly enough. Because if the organization is not designed to be unified across shopper and trade and performance and brand, then it's going to be slow to adapt. So the challenges are analytical, they are workflow challenges, but they really stem from, I think, some of the legacy mindsets that are continuing to hold us back as we're all trying to make progress and work through this paradox.
So let's summarize then the first section. The first section is about the fact that upper funnel media done well do improve performance across the entire funnel. That's the area where we're seeing that marketers are being forced to make the biggest cuts or are under great pressure. And the reasons why that's happening, despite the fact that we know that it's effective if done right, is that they're having difficulty measuring it, they're having difficulty communicating the value, and they're having difficulty actioning it, which wraps itself very neatly into this concept of mindset. You mentioned mindset. So that brings us very neatly into the second of our three pillars, which is taking a performance mindset holds every dollar spent accountable. So let me perhaps start with you, Jenna. When you hear the word performance, what does it mean to you?
Well, that's dangerous. Because yeah, right. So performance to me means simply having an expectation, ideally a great expectation for your media. What performance tends to mean is channels and tactics that perform at a certain threshold of a return on ad spend, an ROI, a cost per, something like that. So to me, it simply means, having an expectation that your media will do the thing you need it to do.
How about you, Nikhil? You have a performance background. What does it mean to you?
Yeah, similarly to Jenna, to me, performance is synonymous with accountability. And when I took this role at Forrester, one of the interview questions that I got was about what performance meant to me. And I was reflecting on, and I was like, like the term is fairly vacuous. Like it's been used kind of like the term programmatic to such an extent that it's almost lost meaning. But I think we have an opportunity as an industry to reinvigorate the term and to refill it with content that's going to be meaningful for the circumstances that we have today. So I think that accountability to me is really what performance means, and it's about holding every aspect of the funnel accountable, despite some of the measurement challenges that we just discussed.
So yeah, and then the second part of this is the mindset, because you referenced the mindset in the previous section. Talk a little bit about what you mean by that.
Yeah, so I think that the mindset refers to just like knowing what to do next, basically, because there's so much. We're all swimming in advice about what to do and which vendors to buy and which tactics to deploy. But the mindset I think that I'm talking about is just having clarity to see through the noise and to know what is true about marketing in 2023, in 1983, in 2043. Like unifying offline and online channels always works. Planning for your customer's journey rather than planning in channel silos always works. More compelling creative always works, And so just like bearing in mind those truisms and holding fast to them, no matter how volatile, no matter how uncertain the world may be, that to me is, I think, the mindset that I'm trying to inculcate in our clients.
So Jenna, is talking about a performance mindset just some verbal jujitsu so that brand marketers don't get angry with you?
Probably for some of them, yeah. But it shouldn't be, right? I think this is the part that really grinds my gears, because to me, mindset is an organizational mindset, right? Everybody's got to be on board with this. And that's the problem. This is why I get so frustrated, is because we started talking about omnichannel in the early aughts and the tens, right? And had marketers actually undertaken what it takes to do omnichannel way back then, the organizational mindset would already be there. And you can just see like all of these things that pop up and like, oh, omnichannel, that was the thing. It was the problem we had to solve. Here we are in 2023 almost solving the same problem, right? When you look at it from that regard. So mindset to me is the organizational mindset. So yes, I agree with you, Nikhil. Know what works for your business, know what works for your customers. What has always worked will always work, with certain tweaks, of course, but the organization needs to agree on that and act accordingly.
Yeah.
So that we don't have brand marketers yelling at Jenna, we've actually come up
I'm used to it, it's fine.
Earlier. This idea that a performance mindset is rooted in accountability. It says that upper and lower funnel media should be held to the same standard. that they should be measurable and accountable in the same way, that they should be regarded through the same lens. The KPIs and goals will differ. For example, while we may care about ROAS in the lower funnel media and have expectations that upper funnel media builds audience for lower funnel media to convert at a more efficient rate, we need to measure and optimize them equally. So perhaps for you, Jenna, does it apply to all vehicles and tactics or just some?
You bet it does, all of them, all of them. And it's not to say that they are all the same, right? The words on here, measure and optimize them equally, does not mean you use the same KPIs. It simply means you treat them equally in your expectations of them. Why would you put a single dollar into market if you don't have some expectation for its outcome? And yet marketers do, right? That's what this is. This says that is absolutely not what you should be doing. You shouldn't be throwing money down the chute. You should actually be throwing money into a place that you have some level of accountability for and against, and that you can measure it accordingly.
So Nikhil, build on that. Let's talk at a channel level. What's happening there?
So at a channel level, marketers are trying to map each channel within their mix to different stages of the customer journey. So as you can see in this graphic on the right, we asked our survey respondents to map channels like local SEO, like branded search, like programmatic, to discovery, acquisition, advocacy. And we did that, and we're heartened by the results because this indicates that marketers are beginning to embrace people-led planning. And people-led planning acknowledges the fact that consumption is fragmented, right? So the average US online adult, we just got some data back, uses more than 3 devices across smartphones, desktop, wearables. They consume more than 5 channels across SMS, apps, browsers, CTV, etc. But even though consumption is fragmented, planning doesn't have to be fragmented, right? And so marketers can map and sequence media exposures to customers' journeys from discovery to advocacy, use things like LTV-driven audience segmentation to correlate awareness-generating exposures at the top of the funnel that build retargeting pools with demand-generating exposures that can be harvested later in the funnel. So this slide shows that marketers are beginning to practice people-led planning, and it's really, really important as demand fluctuates next year, to keep your eye on people-led rather than channel-led planning to actually activate the performance mindset.
Jenna, do you have any thoughts to build on as far as this channel mix and where people are planning to leverage them more effectively moving forward?
I would like to point a big shiny arrow at the top left of this slide. Driving discovery, branded search. That is such a surprising response. But we have seen in our client accounts here at DXC that a large number of new customers are coming through branded search in a higher proportion than they had before. However, that does not happen in a vacuum. If the only thing you do to drive discovery is turn on some branded search, you'll be listening to crickets, right? That is when people have also been exposed to other media, that then the branded search is going to work for you. But I think it's really, really interesting that marketers are looking at this and thinking about it completely differently, because that used to be your performance channel, right? It was branded paid search. Now it's right up there in driving discovery and acquiring new customers. So it's a changed landscape, but it's really just showing that you can't expect a user to come in through a traditional funnel in any sense of the way anymore, right? You can't assume they'll come through on an awareness creative, in through a consideration unit, and then into conversion. They're going to come in wherever they come in based on where they're at the time. And I think this really reflects that.
One thing that I want to point out as well is local SEO. So a lot of people think of local SEO as far as acquiring new customer. It's so last mile, right, in terms of that customer journey. But now there's greater expectations in terms of utilizing it to drive discovery, which then raises an interesting question around the expectations. Because if we think about how people optimize for local search, traditionally they will say, well, I show up for my brand, I show up for what I do, so I'm good. That certainly applies as far as acquiring new customers. But if you have greater expectations of your local SEO, as an example, then you should say, I shouldn't just show up for my brand and what I do. I should also show up for what people buy when they're looking for me. And that then opens up a thematic universe that you need to now optimize for and ask harder questions of and have greater expectations of.
And I should have expectations that users who care to leave reviews for me will do so in a positive manner as well, right? It's not just I am a place operating in this type of service. It is everything surrounding that. Absolutely.
So a big driver of this, Nikhil, would be creative, the capabilities and what actually works to help make these channels more effective. Talk a little bit about that, and as far as the survey findings are concerned, please.
Yeah, so on the next slide, you can see that we asked about, critical roles that creative plays, and some of the results are that over 40% of leaders reported that they use creative to apply brand guidelines throughout the funnel. They're also developing more compelling creative through rigorous creative testing. And one thing I would point out is that because of data deprecation, because of the way in which we're losing signal about who is and isn't in market for goods and services, creative is now more important than ever. And there's, a pretty strong chorus in the industry right now saying this. And from my perspective, two things are really happening with data deprecation. One thing is that audiences are becoming broader because the seed audience is much smaller. So you need to broaden the targeting to maintain the volume of acquisition that you need financially, and intent signals are becoming weaker, right? And so broader audiences and weaker intent means that creative needs to be more persuasive to bring people into market who wouldn't otherwise be in market. So for example, Nasser, like if I had your last 5 credit card purchases, which thank God I don't, but if I did, I could reasonably predict what you're in market for next, right? But without that visibility, I don't know. And so my creative needs to be more persuasive to bring you into market, to create intent in a way that didn't exist before that, exposure to advertising. And so in terms of creative right now, we're seeing in the survey this focus on creative testing to figure out which variables within the creative are causing ads to win or lose. So going beyond A/B testing towards something like multivariate creative testing. And then we're also seeing in the survey data and in conversations that I'm having a focus on brand response creative. So how do I marry the benefits of brand building creative with direct response creative that pushes product? How do I get my creative to do both? How do I get it to be full funnel, if you will? And so I'm heartened by the results in the survey. There's still a lot more work that we have to do to get the quality of creative and the creative testing where it needs to be to become more effective now that we're losing signal.
I will say compelling creative is the reason why my last set of credit card purchases have been so unusual and directly fueled by delicious scotch at night. So it's remarkable how they know me. Anything to add as far as the importance of creative there, Jenna?
Well, I think it's really interesting, right? How this all comes full circle here, because what did we care about the most when we were doing upper funnel media? The creative impact. What are we saying we need to care about still today in a full funnel approach? The creative impact, right? So again, Nikhil said it earlier, what has always worked will always work. And I think people are very keen to forget that right now, but this just reinforces that we can't forget that at all.
Absolutely. So to summarize, the second pillar that we've been talking about is taking a performance mindset, hold every dollar spent accountable. And this idea of what that performance mindset is, how it applies to all channels at every stage of that journey, and incorporates the fundamentals of marketing, including creative. So into the third pillar now, the third and final pillar of the findings of our study. A full funnel performance mindset unlocks the benefits of full funnel media. So this is directly connecting mindset to media effectiveness, And it goes directly to this idea of great expectations. To deliver on great expectations, you need to apply the performance mindset to all parts of the media funnel. So question to you, Nikhil, what have you seen at Forrester when all parts of the media funnel are optimized?
Yeah, so what we see is that each dollar that marketers spend on a given channel can return more than a dollar on other channels. So what's happening is that halo effects from one channel and the other are basically activated. And I'll share two anecdotes in particular. One about out of home, which we're researching. So syncing out of home exposures with mobile advertising activates what's called a priming effect, and it makes subsequent exposure to advertising feel less intrusive, feel less irrelevant than it would have been. And because of that, it's able to lift blended ROAS, it's able to lift mobile response rates. And out of home used to be tougher to measure. Now, given the proliferation of location data, of pixel-enabled conversion data, you can actually match out of home exposures to conversions using lift studies, for example. So out of home is more measurable, and it's having an impact on search and social performance. Same with video, including online video, linear TV, connected TV. We're finding that video diverts people who would have searched for generic keywords to instead search for branded keywords, right? So it's diverting people from more expensive auctions to more profitable auctions. And therefore, TV plus search or TV plus digital is a more profitable way to compete for clicks than just digital or than just TV. And like out of home, it has that priming effect. It exposes consumers to less competitive information, right? So like the branded search has less competitive information, so that lifts impulse buying intent. And then as TV advertising is done continuously, the halo effects strengthen and they catalyze word of mouth. They catalyze virality. And now data science techniques that use automated content recognition to correlate the timing of TV ad exposures to branded search activity. Techniques like those can actually help marketers capitalize on and realize some of these halo effects. Then the last thing I'll say on this topic is about retail media. So we've been doing some research about, for example, the impact that $1 spent on Amazon ads has when consumers go into Home Depot or when they go into Lowe's, or what is $1 spent on Walmart ads? What impact does that have on point of sale, sales velocity? And we're finding that, some of those offline outcomes like in-store sales velocity, in-store purchase intent are actually lifted by the presence of really efficient online media. And so all these are ways in which marketers can actually prove the total revenue impact of their investment, like the full funnel impact of their investment, and then justify more investment at a time when budgets are tight.
Thank you. So at a practical level, Jenna, can you describe an example of where you've seen this in the wild in terms of the alignment of upper and lower funnel with that performance mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with a major enterprise brand who a couple years ago came to us before our economic downturn question mark thing that we're in and said, hey, we're cutting all linear TV, but we can't hurt our brand. Go ahead, DAC, right? That was the challenge. Like, we're going to cut this, but we can't hurt our brand. And so we actually partnered with them because they had this performance mindset, and we understand that everything that we did had to be accountable, but it had to be accountable for different things. And so we took things like CTV and video, Nikhil, and what we did was we actually forecasted out how they had performed in lower funnel channels like branded SEM when they were running linear, and forecasted out what we believed would happen in working with the search engines. We made forecasts for how much brand demand should they get if they had maintained their linear plan versus what we thought we would get by translating all of that into upper funnel digital. And the really positive thing about that was we actually were able to prove that by moving into a full funnel digital program for this brand, we actually grew their brand demand by 30% more than we had forecasted. So not only does this say that the upper funnel matters on its own merit, but it matters downstream as well. And that's what that accountability and performance mindset means to us is, does this do the right thing at the end of the day for your brand. And in this instance, it absolutely did.
And of course, central to that is the need for more insightful measurement. So perhaps, Nikhil, if you can talk a little bit about this idea that one source of truth through consistent measurement paves the way for a performance mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that I hear about all the time, anecdotally, is how difficult it is to get to a single source of truth throughout the funnel because of the multi-currency scenario that we have right now, right? So impression-based currencies like CPM are sort of competing for budget and competing for validity with value-based currencies like cost per acquisition or like cost per install. And this competition between currencies challenges marketers to make apples to apples comparisons across channels. It also blinds them to the halo effects that one channel has on the other. And so a single source of truth is crucial. And one thing that enables is this sort of apples to apples comparison. And tactically, that means focusing on things like marginal costs, so like being able to equivalize the marginal cost of TV to the marginal cost of search, for example, and figure out the cost to acquire one more customer rather than the average cost, and use that marginal cost as like a truer signal of efficacy than average cost, and then be able to swap, more expensive, marginally more expensive dollars for marginally more cost-effective dollars until those marginal costs are equal, and then at that point, mathematically, profit is optimized. So that's one of the things that marketers can do when they get to the single source of truth. But the data shows that marketers are, trying to improve CAC, they're trying to improve lifetime value. They're also trying to focus on like whether those are the right KPIs to measure at all, and how those KPIs correlate to brand growth, to brand health. And so unified marketing measurement, I think, is critical to achieving everything that we've been talking about so far.
So on that final question to you, Jenna, do your clients struggle to measure or feel good about measurement across the funnel?
Yes, yes, they do. Because of what Nikhil just said, right? We are, most of us, very used to the idea that your upper funnel is measured on usually a CPM, your lower funnel is measured on a cost per ROAS or something like that. Those two things don't say the same thing. And so the problem is, why they struggle with this or feel good about it is because it's hard. It takes either time or money, usually both, money to have a platform to measure this all appropriately, or time and man hours to look at it manually, because the math is already there. There is an algebraic formula for every brand's marketing mix, right? You can go prove mathematically that when you do X, Y happens. Any brand can figure that out at any point, should they care to. They just haven't, or if they have, they haven't necessarily enrolled all the key stakeholders, right? This is back to mindset. The organization has to believe it. And if there's one or two naysayers that don't get it or don't buy in, you're not going to go anywhere. And so that's why there are still struggles with, feeling good about the measurement.
Thank you. So to summarize what we've talked about today, and we go back to Great Expectations, and Charles Dickens said it better than I, go figure. We changed again and yet again, and it was now too late and too far to go back, and I went on. And the mists had all solemnly risen now, and the world lay spread before me. So what did the world tell me? It told me that 23 or 2/3 of organizations are prioritizing full funnel media planning over the next 12 months. That's a good thing. But there are challenges. The 3 challenges that marketers have with unlocking full funnel media's benefits is deriving actionable insights from customer data, tracking performance across buyers' journeys, and implementing necessary technologies. And to succeed, marketers need a new measurement framework that applies the performance mindset throughout the funnel, B, no silos between brand and performance media when it comes to planning and execution, and C, a single source of truth to hold each stage of the funnel similarly accountable. So our recommendations coming out of today: embrace this performance mindset, eliminate silos between brand and performance, and develop and deploy a new measurement framework mapped to buyers' journeys, and trust that single source of truth. So we've come to the Q&A section. of today's webinar. I want to first of all thank Nikhil and Jenna for all of their insight and ideas that they brought forward for us today. Please, if you have any questions, just drop them in the question bar. I can see a couple of questions that we have here. So let's start perhaps with you, Nikhil. This is an international survey across North America and Europe. Have you seen any differences in markets in how marketers are getting ready to face the current set of circumstances, given that the circumstances are different across these markets?
Yeah, sure. So our data indicates that Canadian marketers are relatively more focused than others on reducing unnecessary marketing spend versus consolidating the spend on the most impactful channels. So we're forecasting more budget cuts basically for those marketers than for other marketers. We are also finding that Canadian marketers are more likely than the median to use creative intelligence to decide what comes next. And I love that phrase of creative intelligence. That to me means figuring out which shade of red, which breed of dog, which voiceover is actually causing your ads to win or lose, and getting really granular and using creative data rather than having to rely on increasingly invasive audience targeting to lift performance. And then in terms of Europe, we're seeing that that French marketers are most likely to bring outsourced technologies and services back in-house, and that French marketers tend to have a more holistic view of the funnel, which is a solid first step towards actually embracing that performance mindset than other marketers out there. And Spanish marketers finally are feeling these challenges more acutely. They're feeling the tech challenges more acutely, and so they reference the need for like a more effective SEO platform. They reference the need for more effective measurement technology, more like insightful measurement technology. And so those are some of the regional variations that we detected in the study.
Excellent. So given all of this context that the two of you have provided, this is our final question that we'll ask here, audience question. What's one thing you should go into 2023 thinking about given this POV? So Nikhil, let's start with you.
No, Jenna, you first.
Oh, look at that. No, me first. Firstly, get a time machine. Go back to 2009. Work inside your organization until it is a true omni-channel organization, and 2023 will be great. But no, seriously.
Helpful as always, Jenna. Thank you.
I'm here to help. I'm here to help. If you have not actually understood the impact of upper funnel on your business, if you really, truly don't yet have a grasp of that, you absolutely must now, because if you do not, it will get cut. You won't be able to make your business case. And what will happen is your brand will get so bottom funneled that your brand health will decline. Brand energy, I'm stealing, Nikhil. I'm using it in every other sentence. Yeah, I'm using it in every other sentence I speak from here on out, because brand energy is such a great way to think about that. It is not just brand awareness or consideration. It's how powerful is your brand, right? What is it doing to the audience? And if we don't have that understanding, you're just going to keep cutting away at it and decreasing your energy. So time to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Two things I would add. Speaking of the organization, one thing that we've found that's been really effective for our clients is when you have a few champions who like intuitively understand the change that needs to be made, and then they're able to prove to others and get buy-in from others to actually make those changes. So it's really important not to just make this like a theoretical conversation about like what could happen, but to actually have people who in their bones, perhaps from experience, like understand what needs to change, and then have them, folks like Jenna, if you were in-house at a brand, have folks like you be instigators of change. Something else that I would say is to create mental models and actually have ways to visualize the mindset that we're talking about, because what we're talking about is fairly esoteric and abstruse, and it can be hard to like hang on to. And you leave this webinar and you're like, all right, like that was fascinating, but like, what do I do next? What you do next is like, put down on paper what great looks like, and like actually have some sort of model that you can use to benchmark yourself against. Maybe do one of Forrester's maturity assessments to figure out, where you are in this process and what you need to do to get to the next level. So, think about, the tools and frameworks that you can use to actually implement some of this.
Thank you very much for that, Nikhil. And having been on the receiving end of Jenna's provocative change management techniques, I can see that they work. So with that, for anybody listening today, you are able to download the report. It's available at dacgroup.com/media. It will also be sent to everybody who has joined this webinar. There will be video of this webinar available in its entirety, as well as in, and I've been asked to use this word, snackable pieces. And we will be talking about this on our next episode of the Inside the Funnel podcast from DAC. So I want to thank everybody who showed up today, and in particular, I'd love to thank my colleague in crime, Jenna, but not real crime, obviously, for making it all the way from London. And thank you to Nikhil Lai of Forrester for all of the insight, not just behind the report that you guys conducted, but for your ability to deliver it so insightfully today. Thank you very much.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
And thank you to everybody who joined us, and we'll see you on our next one. Take care and have a great one.
Thank you.